Good afternoon and welcome to today's Wednesday webcast. I'm delighted and honoured to be joined by Professor Clayton Christensen. Clay, many thanks for being with us today.
Delighted to be here. Thanks to you.
Well, thank you. You're giving a couple of keynote speeches today. The first one looking at bridging the gap between academia and practitioners. You seem to be saying that you feel the academic world has lost favour with practitioners. Can you tell us a little more?
Yeah, I'd be even a little more assertive than that academia in a lot of ways has become irrelevant to practitioners. And I think there are two things going on. The first, in the language of my research, business schools are being disrupted by corporate universities. What corporate, especially operating companies, are finding is that our MBAs are focusing on arcane things, often in finance. And the salaries are so high that operating companies can't hire them and have them fit in their salary structure. And so they're creating corporate universities. They're pulling in the training of their managers at a time of outsourcing. They're insourcing management. And a key reason why is that when you teach it, you need to teach what is usable. And when you do research, you need to develop theories that are useful. And in academia, literally almost all of our research that is published measures correlations and not causality. And just as an example of what we mean, I have been suffering for about 4 years with follicular lymphoma. And it's a type of lymphoma. And the doctor, when he diagnosed that I had this type of lymphoma, said, now there are two ways to address this. The traditional way gives you a 73% probability that in 5 years you'll still be in remission. There's a new strategy that improves the probability of success to 84% after 5 years. That's what we should do. And I said, fine. But you notice that the research behind this made a correlation, and they could only express the outcomes as a probability. And so they can generalize to the population. They can't say anything about Clay Christensen at this point in their research. And if you are doing research for management and you say on average 64% of the people who do this are more successful, what can you do? Because if it's correlative, it can't generalize to any individual.
So one of your premises is we need to rethink theories, to come back to the notion of causality. So a lot of the data that people use for theories is based on data of the past, and then extrapolations can be made for the future. But for a manager, how can he or she distinguish between a good theory and a bad theory, an applicable theory or an irrelevant theory? How can that be done?
It's a great question. So on average, I can only think of one or two theories that any of us have ever seen that apply to every people in every situation. Almost always, a useful theory is contingent on a circumstance. And so a good theory is able to say where this works and where it doesn't work. And if they identify the situations in which you find yourself in, and the theory is a statement of causality, then you're able to say, all right, if you find yourself in this situation, this is the way you need to pursue your objective. But if you find yourself in this situation, buddy, don't do it that way because it doesn't work. You got to do it this way. And if you're in this situation, man, don't even try. And so a good theory is able to not only understand what causes what and why, but then you can express it as if-then. If you're in this situation, do that. In this situation, do that. And that becomes very useful.
Can theories help us predict disruptive innovations?
yes, a theory absolutely allows you to predict what's happening. And it has a very high degree of success in predicting this, you know. So I love to go back, and one of the things that we have done is when we can see disruption occurring, we write about it. You know, and we've learned that there are some instances where disruption doesn't occur. And understanding that this theory doesn't work has really helped us to say, in this situation, don't worry about it. In this situation, however, you really need to worry about it. So things that are going on that we've seen this for now 10 years is the disruption of Oracle by Salesforce.com. And we've talked about the disruption of MBAs by corporate universities. We've seen that for 10 years. I think that the theory says what we'll see is the Apple iPhone is going to be disrupted by modular smartphones using an Android operating system. And the theory projects that that's going to happen. And you can make that because there's a statement of causality. And you see things happen, you can say, this is what it means.
So if I'm Apple, that theory should be a clarion call for me to take action.
It should. I hate to say this, I've been in this for a long time, and generally what it means is doesn't apply to us.
So tell us more about that for the few viewers watching today who may be unfamiliar with the innovator's dilemma, the rare person on the planet for whom that may be the case. Can you help us understand the theories behind the innovator's dilemma and how that relates with the Apple iPhone case?
Well, so there are two types of innovations, and one we call sustaining innovations. And a sustaining innovation transforms a good product into a better product that you could sell for better profits to your best customers. And these kinds of sustaining innovations account for, 80 or 90% of all innovations on the earth. And they're very important to Purdue. But you can predict that the companies that are the leaders of the industry now will find themselves still on top of the industry when these battles of sustaining innovation begin. Because it doesn't matter technologically how hard it is. If the innovation allows the leaders in an industry to make better products that they could sell for better profits to their customers, they'll always figure out a way to get it done because they're motivated. But then there's this other kind of innovation that we call disruptive innovation. And the word disruptive innovation has been misused all over the planet, unfortunately, but it has a very specific meaning. And that is, a disruptive innovation transforms a product that historically was complicated and expensive. Disruption transforms that into a product that is so affordable and simple that many more people have access to it. And these disruptive innovations take root in undemanding applications, often getting the customer's business who couldn't have anything to buy before. So those are disruptive innovations, and almost always it's entrant companies that win these battles of disruptive innovation. And the reason why this occurs is the pursuit of profit. The pursuit of profit causes the innovator's dilemma. So just imagine that you are General Motors and Toyota comes in the bottom of the market in the 1960s in Europe and North America with a rusty little subcompact that they called a Corona. And General Motors and Ford were making big cars for big people. And they'd look down at this crummy little Toyota where the gross margins were just tiny and compare that with the returns they get by making even bigger cars for bigger people. It made no sense to defend the worst possible part of the business when they have the opportunity to make more profits. From Toyota's perspective, they look up and they say, man, if I could just make a better product, my margins will increase. And so as they come at the bottom, the leaders flee rather than fight, because in the pursuit of profit, everybody is motivated to make better products that they can sell for better profits. And that's why the entrant companies always win when disruption emerges.
So given that marginal thinking, companies typically end up paying the full price in any case, given the fact that research has been out there for quite considerable time, why then, when we talked about the clarion call before, why then, when the evidence is there, what is it stopping us from acting on that evidence?
Again, Paul, that's a great question too. Let me offer two possible answers. The first one is that managers who really understand the theory actually act on it. And for example, in a session just before mine here at this conference, the presenter was talking about a Chotacool refrigerator in India that brings the cost of having a refrigerator from $300 or $400 down to $40. And this is launched by Godrej, who is the biggest manufacturer of full refrigerators. And they saw, oh my goodness, if we could figure out a much more affordable and simple product that a much larger population of people have access to it, man, that's a big market. And they came down, give responsibility to a completely different business unit. And it's been a wild success. So if you use the theory, now, so why don't more people use the theory? I think it comes back to one of the problems of the Harvard Business School, which I think IMD doesn't have the problem to the same extent. So when I write a book around a theory from my research, I think that I'm writing it to everybody. In reality, I'm writing it to individual people who read the book. And so if I do a good job and if it's a compelling theory, the book is consumed individually by one person. And then she goes to work on Monday morning just excited about, holy cow, if we just do this, our profitability is going to improve, our growth opportunities is going to improve. And everybody else on her team says, that makes no sense at all. And then she tries to explain it, but, and within 2 weeks, everybody's saying, now one more time, why should you do this thing? Because they don't share the same way to frame the problem. The original spark just gets dissipated. And so companies don't react to an idea because the ideas typically are consumed individually. And so one of the things I love about your model here is you cause theories, what are important, to be consumed by big groups so that they can take back all having the same language and the same way to frame the problem.
So that takes us back to the whole question of education. If we broaden that out a little bit, you talked before about Harvard and IMD. The education industry is going through a huge change. If there's one industry where we can talk about disruptive innovation, I guess it's got to be the education industry.
So true.
How do you see that playing out? And what advice would you give to business schools like IMD? What should we be doing in this tsunami that we find ourselves in?
Well, if you wouldn't mind, let me go into the earlier years of learning and what we've learned about that, and then bring it up to what we're doing now. So in America, I think we have this problem more deeply than people in Europe do. But we wrestle with dropout rates, especially in our urban schools. And attendance is just horrific. And our schools just aren't improving on any measure. And we put so much effort trying to improve our schools, And we get so little output from that. And we got an insight in a book that we wrote called Disrupting Class about why it is that students don't seem to be motivated to do their work. And the answer draws upon another theory from our research called the job to be done. And what that means is stuff happens to us every day. You know, jobs arise in our life that we need to get done. And what causes us to buy something or use something is we got to get this job done. So we raised the question in education, is there a job out there that children and teenagers are trying to get done? And it turns out that school isn't a job that they're trying to do. School is something that they could hire or use to get the job done, but that's not the job. The job is that the students need to feel successful every day. That's the job. And sure, I could hire school to get this job done, but I could also drop out of school and join a gang to get this job done if I need to feel successful. Or I could drop out of school and buy a car and cruise the neighborhood all day to feel successful, you know. But once we understood that this is the job, oh my gosh, the schools don't do this job well at all, you know. And at home, at work, and at IMD, you can see kind of the same thing. And so a guy named Hertzberg wrote a piece called, one more time, how do you motivate our employees? And he describes that there are a set of things that he called hygiene factors, that these are factors at work that bother people. And then there are other things that motivate people. And if you worry about all of these hygiene factors so that people aren't dissatisfied anymore, they're not satisfied. They're just not dissatisfied. They're not motivated. They're just not dissatisfied. And what motivates people is just as we saw in the school situation, the opportunity to achieve something that's important is the most intense driver of people being motivated to help the enterprise be successful. Second one, do they get recognized for what they've done? Third, do I have an important responsibility? And the fourth one, do I have the opportunity to teach other people what I know and let other people teach me? And it's a little bit scary to me that at least at our school, management relates to, at least the way we frame it, cutting deals, selling products, acquisition, merging, technology, things that are going on outside of the company. But the inside of the company, which we call management, we actually don't teach that very well. And I think IMD does a much better job teaching what it means inside a company to motivate people and organize their work so that they feel successful every day that they go home.
And when we see the disruptions coming up, for example, with the MOOCs, these massive online courses, how should schools be responding to that?
It's a big deal because there's one big discussion about whether there will be these massive MOOCs that everybody in the world takes the same course from the same people, and that becomes like the Intel Inside of education. There's another view that there will emerge networks where people develop little apps or tutorials on, I just want to teach you how to do this particular thing, and it goes into this network. And that allows teachers who need to teach the people who work for them a particular skill, or in this situation, you know, and you can reach in the app or in the network and pull out these apps and tutorials and put it into a module and then into a course. And I think that most of the market will actually be taken over by this facilitated network, because what's inherent in learning on the job is it needs to be customizable, just in time, modular, and the MOOCs don't do that very well, okay? But whether it is one way or the other, what it means for business schools is the way I frame my job as a teacher is to teach, to deliver the content for the customers to use. And because I take so much time and energy in being sure that I deliver it correctly, boy, I don't have much time for anything else, And right now I have 180 students, and I can talk to them 3 times in the semester for 15 minutes I don't know these guys, except a few of them, because I'm trying to deliver. What happens if I can ask an even better teacher than me to deliver the content? Oh my goodness, now I have all kinds of time where I can turn on the other side and teach people how to use the ideas in your company, to be a coach rather than a deliverer, and help individual students to understand how to apply what they're learning in their situation, and let them ask questions and use it and come back with more questions. And so the job of the teacher isn't a scary thing. I think it's an exciting thing, because we can do more of what is satisfying for us.
Clay, there's so many areas that we could touch on today, and we've covered it. We've covered quite a few already. I'm conscious of the clock, and we've done our best to address some of those already in the discussion. I'd just like to take a few more moments to address some specific questions, which I think will be of interest to our members. And
I'll do my best.
Okay, what can you do to build the capability of leaders to generate innovation on a consistent basis? How do you keep fresh yourself? How do you keep an innovative mindset?
Boy, a great question. I'll just say, Paul, you ask great questions. It takes a lot more brains to ask good questions than to give good answers. So my congratulations to you. And actually, that's, I think, the answer to your question is, if you ever, how do I say this? I can never teach you anything unless you're ready to learn. People will learn when they're ready to learn, not when we're ready to teach them. And if you ever get to a point when you believe that you have all of the answers, then you don't ask any questions, and therefore you can't learn anything because you're not asking questions, if you see what I mean. And so if a manager can be humble all of the time, I actually don't know everything. And we teach people to, when they see something going on, if their instinct is, I wonder why they're doing that. And watch it even more carefully to understand what's the job they're trying to get done. If they ask the question, the answer is often very obvious. And that gives an opportunity to start a new company. And there's some people, 5 to 10% of us, who when they were born, they just had an instinct. When they see something, I just have to understand why. There are 30% of people who just will never get it, But for the rest of us, I think that we can teach people how to ask good questions and to cultivate an instinct of always asking, why are they doing this? And so we can actually learn how to innovate much more readily than we do today.
In terms of company cultures, is there a specific kind of company culture based on your research that tends to lead to more innovation than another?
Boy, that's again a great question. Is there a better culture for innovation? And you see that in some companies and not in others. Absolutely, you see it. And I think that as a general rule, the financial sector in our economies has a huge impact on what managers do. And I had a student who was a general manager of a business unit, and I asked her just to explain, what's life like? And she said, actually, as a general manager, your job is to assemble and ship numbers. That's what you do. You assemble and ship numbers. And every day, you're looking at as the numbers or the components are coming in and you add them up. Are we going to be able to ship the numbers at the end of the quarter? And if the numbers don't add up, then you spend your time talking to everybody who reports to you. We need 2 more percentage of gross margin. Do you have any customers that we can get their order in before the end of the quarter? And can you just get rid of 2 more people? You know, and the interaction between the manager and their direct reports are all focused on, do you have the numbers that we need so that I can deliver them, you know? And because innovation is quite unpredictable in terms of its timing, the more an organization's culture are focused on delivering the numbers, the management mindset is all around delivering as opposed to developing the numbers that will deliver 5 years from now. So there's a huge impact on companies that are obsessed with delivering numbers.
So let me ask one last question, which kind of wraps up, I think, a lot of the themes that we're talking about. A question that came in from one of our viewers saying, do you think that we've reached a point, or we're reaching a point in society now where social innovation is lagging to such an extent that it may actually hinder corporate innovation?
I think you're exactly right, that social innovation is in the backwater in a lot of ways. And I think it's because you and we don't teach how to manage in a social sector where you don't have a P&L and financial motivation, you know, how to, in a lot of ways, we, in the social sector, we break the principle that Hertzberg taught us about how you motivate employees, and that is what motivates them. They're members of government unions and all kinds of reasons why you wouldn't want to innovate. But even those guys, the drivers are the opportunities to achieve and grow and get recognized, you know. And we don't teach public sector managers that there's all kinds of opportunities to do this, you know. And so I have to blame ourselves, but we don't teach people how to, in your schools, how can you organize the day so that every day the students go home feeling successful? You know, they're teach by projects allows them to do that, but we don't teach any of those things.
Clay, you've been very generous with your time. Thank you very much for coming to IMD and spending time with us today.
Well, I'm honored to do it, Paul.